the African feminist mafia has activated. I now need to respond now. I thought that I'd be eating a lot of good food and just be satisfying immediate desires, right? Like eating good food, hanging out with like a couple of good friends, playing music, like that's what I thought I'll be doing. But I guess instead what I'm doing is anticipating the end times and really taking this as a possibility for crafting with others on what can come out of the rubble.
What the actual Hey, I am Tiffany Kagure Mugo, your favorite curator of chaos and local polymath, if I'm feeling confident. And welcome to another edition of What Is This Hot Mess? A podcast that chills with fire feminists from across the globe to have conversations about the fact that the world is hot trash right now. We chat about the ways we are clearing up the clutter by telling the world to pick up its fascism off the floor and put away its hate, violence, and general nonsense, because nobody wants to see all that. In this episode, we have Jack, who is a fave. Let's start there. When you track down Jack and see what they're all about, you see a whole bunch of things, but one of my favorite descriptions is a feminist activist and pioneering researcher, straight out of Malaysia. Jack works in the wild vortex that is internet technologies, social justice, and collective power, whilst moving swiftly into the realms of sexuality and gender justice. Jack and I go way back, and they are one of the folks who are making the sort of internet I want to exist in, because they are the badass co-founder of the New Moon Fund and Take Back the Tech. We all have those people who, if there was a Grammy for feminism or an Oscars for activism, would make the "I would like to thank" list during speeches. When I was a baby feminist just trying to figure things out, I had some incredible people who put me on the right path. And y'all know who you are. Shout out to my loves. So this is actually technically a PSA to thank your everyday feminist guardians. Don't be nonsense. No one is an island and you did not make it alone. Call your feminist elders. Unless they're millennials who hate phone calls, and in that case, text them. Just shoot them a WhatsApp, because no one needs that sort of harassment, okay? When I asked Jack about how it all began, she told me all about the official and unofficial feminist guides in her life who formed part of her feminist origin story.
Ooh, that is a big question. How did it all begin? It's a really funny. I think the feminist origin story always comes from meeting a badass feminist who then helps you to for me anyway, meeting a badass feminist that helps me to unpack the world and my own lived experience from the lens of power and understanding how systems and structures of power has really contributed towards how I have inhabited and experienced the world and my life, including discrimination, inequality, and all of the things that has made me an activist my whole life. So I think that's how it began. And I guess it has many different beginning points for different chapters of this. And that includes meeting meeting people who don't call themselves feminists, but have an eye to this, like my teacher when I was in primary school, who was really paying attention to who had spaces to speak and who didn't in class, to my first job at Women's Aid Organization and my very intimidating and badass boss, Ivy Josia, and my very, very cool colleagues like Rosanna Isa, Shokfong Wachla. So different points. And then feminist tech activism, I remember very clearly being in this event that I thought I was going to learn to how to build a website, but had my entire kind of political foundation shook to understand how technology was political space. And of course, it's also extremely gendered. And meeting these cool feminist tech activists from Philippines, like Pai Villanueva and Chikai, whom I'm still really good friends with until today. And yeah, I can give you a host of those along the way up until today. Always a journey.
So you basically had a feminist village who raised you.
I don't know for a village, but a lucky path. Yeah, a path of many lucky encounters with brilliant people.
Part of why Jack took the path they took is she realized tech is political, having stumbled onto feminist tech activism. The idea that tech is neutral is a scam. We all joined the digital revolution thinking we shall be the star of our own show, throwing pictures of smoothies and sandwiches and sunsets at family members and friends alike. A simpler time when Facebook was mainly deep lyrics from your favorite song, and Instagram was one of many pictures of a cool puddle you saw. Granted, it was one of 1,000 puddles you'd seen that week, but there is beauty in the mundane. Then something got wicked, and now we are here. Or maybe something was always wicked, but here we are in the global playground that is the World Wide Web, and we see that it is a lot more complicated than we thought. There are cliques and bullies and kids with better lunches than you, and I don't know, this metaphor is going somewhere strange, but you get the general point. We have all been on the internet and we have seen what thrives, what gets the most likes, who is allowed to be topless, #free the nipple, who gets to run rampant while some are shadow banned, demonetized, and relegated to the side paths while some people are running the streets. We see where all the money goes and how people are acting a hot mess on the internet. Like, why did you comment that? Like when you logged on using your data, why did you feel that was the way to put your imprint on this general collective conversation? Seriously. And anyway, it all leads back to the idea of who creates the space. I need to take a moment to talk about how the tech space purports, if that is the big English word, to monitor certain content for the sake of the community. When the content is sex positive or talking about bodily autonomy or safe sex, it is banned. It is going against community guidelines. I was watching this German woman who was talking about schmegs online. Schmegs, a grown woman talking about her PhD research around sex and sexuality, and she had to say schmegs and schmegsuality, which granted is actually a little bit adorable, so I might be taking that one. But the fact is there is a double standard. As a sex-positive practitioner and curator of sexy materials, I have had my fair share of being told by Facebook, do that one more time, Tiff. Do that one more time, and you are out. And, sometimes I did push the boundaries and I was out. I was chucked off. Our Facebook page as Holla Africa has been flagged numerous times. I have been banned from using Facebook numerous times. I have been put in Facebook jail numerous times because of my content. And Instagram, full-blown taken down. Full-blown taken down. We are actually on our second Instagram account as Holla Africa because we were told that we are going against community guidelines. But if you know us, all we're trying to do is make sure that everyone's getting laid properly. But not me finding out that there was a Facebook group of 32,000 men that ran for over 6 years where the whole focus of the group was to post non-consensual, intimate images of their partners. It took 6 years for Facebook to take this group down, despite reports and women coming forward to say that this group existed. The group had men posting pictures they took of wives and partners, and the comments were heinous. And this was not some red pill, dark 4chan nonsense, like men who were skulking in the background, dudes who, we can't get a girl. It's some incel nonsense. No, this was lawyers. It was doctors. It was entrepreneurs. There was even a mayoral candidate in the mix to boot. It took 6 years. Again, I need to keep coming back to this. It took 6 years to get this taken down. And now apparently they've all just scurried off to like undercover Telegram channels or something. Whereas on Holla Africa, we post one thing, one image of two consensual adults having an intimate moment, not even that deep, because we learned our lesson. It takes hours to take that down, sometimes minutes. Sometimes I post it, and by the time it's finished posting, it's already been taken down. So the question is, who really is the community that is being protected by these tech giants? And who is the space really made for? You know, the tech space is so political because right now I think people are getting more of a dose of that, right? Like people are seeing more and more how these tech bros are doing too much, turning up at inaugurations they have no business being at, like removing these sorts of platforms doing that. So I think, can you speak a little bit more to the idea of tech being political?
Well, I think technology has always been not only political, but very gendered. And I think it has managed to make itself invisible so far because it hides behind this discourse or this kind of how do you want to call it? I don't know if you read fantasy stories where they talk about fairies having glamour. So you have this aura of right? Like this thing that you kind of project around you that makes you seem to be something, but the reality is something else. So science and technology has always cloaked itself in this glamour of neutrality and of in objectivity. But in fact, from the very beginning, it's been entirely embroiled in and complicit in the project of colonialism, in the project of creating gendered societies and disparities and extraction and, creating rationale for extractivism and projects of empire. Like all along, science and technology has been really not only a driver, but a real complicit collaborator of these projects. Then we come to the current times where digital technology has become plays such a big role and has such a huge influence in how we participate and engage in all facets of life, whether it's the most intimate between you and yourself, and you and your family, and you and your body, and you and your relationships, to the most public between you and your government, you and your land, you and the economy and territories. Technology is like a big systemic and structural force within all of that. It sort of constructs how we make sense and make meaning out of these particular relationships and who has power, what is value, what is being said. And you said it as well, like all these tech bros having no business in inaugurations. And unfortunately, at this point, it is very, very much monopolized and directed by, I say, I sometimes say it as a joke in a very offhanded way, but 4 white guys and maybe 1 Indian dude. And that's that's kind of like, that's the imagination and the reality that we're living in right now. It's not entirely true, but true enough. Yeah. Funny, not funny.
When we talk about the Silicon Valley model, Jack explained it as a few dudes, jokingly 4 white dudes and an Asian, who were seen as the saviors of the realm, the one true brain to save us all. And in that belief, all of the capital flows towards them, concentrating the resources in a couple of disruptive hands, rather than giving everyone a fair shot at this saving the world shtick.
I think we're building similar models. I think that's the sad thing about where we are at right now, right? Like in terms of how science and technology is being developed and built, it's the same Silicon Valley model, where every single country it's either trying to create itself as the Silicon Valley of, Kenya as the Silicon Valley of Africa, India as the Silicon Valley of Asia. Well, Asia is also like a make-believe place, but there's several different Silicon Valleys in Asia. And then when you have a Silicon Valley off, that means you also want to be able to monopolize the field in the same way. You also want to create kind of really unreal, not only unrealistic but problematic idols within the field that you wanna put all of your faith in to say, okay, no, you have the vision and you are the genius and you should lead us and we will put all of our capital investment in you. And it's okay, like feel free to experiment on all of us because we will get there. It's important for us to become like competitive. And it's the same model of how you invest in it, what you kind of prioritize and put a lot of energy behind. I think that's also the sad problematic narrowing that we are in right now.
The internet can be a lot. It doesn't matter if you're witnessing an influencer being the modern day version of a snake oil salesman. No, that herb will not cure your chronic illness. Or sitting on Facebook watching your older relatives post the most inappropriate and wild status updates. The space is doing too much. I asked Jack what they're feeling about the online space right now.
What is my gut feeling about online spaces right now? Oh, it's a tough question. I think on the one hand, an immediate visceral reaction is to kind of coil away from the toxicity and pollution and blatant capitalism that has been infusing all of its development and its perceived value and use. Not all, but a majority of it. So, that's like the initial gut reaction and just wanting to really turn away from it. And I think it's particularly, I mean, the last few years especially has been particularly challenging because it's so blatant in terms of who has control and power over shaping those spaces and how little accountability there is and how little participation there is. So that's like the first gut reaction. But then because, I've been a feminist activist in this space for a better part of my life, a very quick follow-up response to this is to, wanting to elbow out and create this direct attention and visibility also towards a lot of really incredible work and imagination and strategizing and organizing that's being done by a lot of groups and activists in many parts of the world, especially in the larger majority world, right? Like where you and I are in. And that is a different feeling. That one sort of makes me want to, step into the messiness of that more. And give it more everything for it to thrive.
Tech is sneaking into everything. Your bed, your garden, your groceries, your menstrual cycle, everything. You can get an app with optional AI for everything. My personal fave is sex toys that can be used globally through like these sort of online platforms. And because tech is so prolific, we need to give the girlies the coins. Give the feminist tech girlies the monies so that they can increasingly create a digital world in more than one image. So wait, how do you say the fund's name? Because I feel like it's New Moon.
Yeah.
It is New Moon. Okay, cool. Yeah. Sometimes people say things and you're like, absolutely not. You have butchered that. So, because, we all know that the money in tech and the money for the digital space is going to just, like basically 3 dude bros and then their proteges now, right? So my question is, what does feminist tech look like? And what does funding feminist tech look like? Because I gotta ask you about your actual work. What is in the email address?
What does feminist tech look like? I think feminist tech looks like a deliberate unpeeling of all of the different layers and complexities and interrelationality of the different parts that makes up what we think about technology or technology infrastructures in our lives that means feminist tech is also about communities. Feminist tech is about thinking about power and decision making and governance and accountability and all, and thinking about that not just in terms of articulating and understanding what's actually happening right now and who it is affecting, but thinking about it in a way that's also creating propositions and potential ways, pathways forward. Feminist tech is also about understanding technology's relationship to the environment and the ecosystems we're a part of and the communities that inhabit them, and also all kinds of, kinship with other kinds of living beings. And feminist tech is about centering the communities who will be, where these technologies are important for, and then them sort of defining what it is and should be or needs to be, and also centering those who are most affected and making that very visible. And feminist tech is about imagination, about different frameworks, and it's also about building and developing and adapting and thinking through different kinds of technologies and the sorts of power that needs to fuel and drive them in really interesting and exploratory and sometimes very, and often actually not sometimes, often very connected to ancestral knowledge and technologies as well, building from our histories in order to be able to chart a pathway to the future. And sometimes it's very pragmatic. I'm building, for example, one of our partners in Rwanda is building a platform online. And I think now they've developed it into also an application that you can use to support people to be able to access sexual and reproductive health services in the country. So it is also as pragmatic as that. So New Moon Fund is a feminist tech fund. We are an activist fund. So what does that mean? It means we're kind of, we're grounded in movement and led by movement for movement.
Like I said, give the kittens their coins. New Moon Fund was birthed like most game changers, such as making banana bread and other breads actually from scratch during COVID. That time when people were sitting at home with their own thoughts. A moment that was truly terrifying but magical. So Jack wants to make it known that she does not, and I quote, have deep pockets. So do not slide into the DMs trying to secure the bag. But despite not having these deep pockets, she got into the business of thinking about and reimagining what funding movement building could look like. In her view, and a bunch of other smart folks out there, funding models were, and still are, missing a big chunk of the larger picture, namely how organizing is happening, where it is happening, and who is making this magic happen. Who is leading the things? These are the questions that funding models are not asking. COVID truly showed us two things, our ass and how deeply we engage with the digital world and how much the social justice realm still had to do its job within this space. So the question was, how could this deep relationship be leveraged? And this was the thinking that Jack was doing along with all her co-conspirators.
So then it's like, actually, maybe now it's a really good time to try and think about setting up a dedicated fund to support feminist tech work. Because, the intersection between feminism and technology is not evident. So much of our time, so much of the time that I've been spending in this field is field building and kind of getting more people aware and engaged with this connection and why it's important to kind of have feminist analysis and lens to this question of technology. So then a bunch of us, it was Ezra who built CrowdMap. I don't know if you know that, and who was the head of Majal. Really, I admired her work for a long time. She's a developer and from Bahrain, and also Ezra, and also Anasuya, who co-founded Whose Knowledge. We were sitting there and thinking and thoughting, and then okay, how about a feminist tech fund? Let's do it. I don't know, man, this is not my jam, but I'll help think I helped to like think about how to make this happen with this question that I had, right? About how to resource, feminist organizing in this current time. And I remembered in January 2021, it was like, ping, there was a clarity to me. I'm like, oh, you know what? What this could do is to really explore thinking about what would it take to also create alternative resourcing infrastructures. Like we need to also think about different sorts of economic models that will be able to fund and fuel our organizing and our movements and our activism. And I think it's never been more evident than this year, especially, to show that the current funding resourcing system is broken. Not only is it broken, it feels like, so much of our activism is being funded through composting the leftover of capitalism and colonialism. It's a problem. So that's how it came about. And so we just set up this fund. It is currently still the only fund that's dedicated to feminist tech organizing in the larger majority world. We are an activist fund, which means we raise money. It also means we raise money to move money, and we do a lot of advocacy and activism within philanthropy to highlight this intersection as well, and to demonstrate the leadership of the vision and leadership and amazingness of all these different groups and activists in the larger majority world who's doing this work. And I actually didn't realize how many people are doing this work until we had our first open call in August 2022. So when we had our first open call, we're like, let's just see, who will apply doing this work on feminism and tech. My God, we got so many applications from people doing such cool work from all over, like so many different parts of the world. It was so hopeful. Yeah, it was really like such an injection of vision and possibility. I can't tell you. Yeah.
But we aren't perfect. Even when we are doing big things like Jack is, we can still trip up. Hence the Oops, My Bad segment, where we look at the failings of feminists. Yes, the failings, because we're allowed to fail. And what we learned from them. Because if you're going to fail, learn something, right? Don't fail and then be an asshole about it. Fail, accept the L, and learn something from it. And that is what this segment is all about. So in the case of Jack, it was forgetting to invite the hosts to the party in their own country. It's a terrible metaphor, but look, work with me here and it will make a lot more sense when Jack tells the story. Because we don't hear those stories. We just hear people are shining lights and then all of a sudden they're canceled for something that happened in 2020. Well, 1999 even. Mm-hmm. So what was a moment in your activism? So you go on record and no one can ever use it against you.
Oof. Gosh, actually, such a good question, and feels like there are so many oops, my bad moments that I can share with you. We recently had an event. It was a global event that was happening in Kenya. And it's a small event. We were bringing partners from different parts of the world, and we had it in it wasn't in Nairobi. It was somewhere a little outside of Nairobi, and we brought people from Latin America, from different from North Africa, from Asia, and from different parts of the world. But we didn't have a partner in that particular small program that was in Kenya. So we completely didn't think about, but we had other partners who were in Kenya. It was not part of this grant stream, it was part of other grant streams. But somehow we didn't think about inviting our partners who were in Kenya to come to this event that we were having in Kenya. So it just was so weirdly, decontextualized, and the people that we had who were from Kenya were here partnering with us as documenters or as context accompanying, but not as participants in the event, even though we had partners in Kenya. And it was such a big. It's not even a oops, my bad. It was like a terrible, on record. We really was, called in into this very clearly. It was very and it was something we sat with and reflected on and are still having conversations around, that we need to thread through how we do things very differently. But this kind of disconnection and dislocation and not centering of the activism and the people and our partners in the context where people actually bringing people together in was, huge learning moment.
I admit it. I spend too much time scrolling. Granted, it's mainly memes. Anyone who knows me, I'm always sharing a meme or 8 or 6. I will bombard your inbox with reels. Like, that is my entire shtick. But sometimes I'm out here on the internet at 5 a.m. being radicalized, because I wake up at around 5 a.m. and I pop onto the internet and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on in the world? And then I get radicalized. People are online saying the quiet part out loud, and I am shooketh. People are acting bold and wild on the World Wide Web. Look, we all have some sideways thoughts, but my thing is, you turned on your camera, pressed record, recorded that video, and posted it. Wicked behavior. In light of that, I'm going to go on record and say, stop giving Dude Bros podcast equipment. Just stop it. There's toxic influencers. It's the toxic influencers for me that are really stressful. Like, I understand that the internet space was supposed to be like the great equalizer, but like it feels like a mess. So I think you started touching on it, but like, how do we counteract and push back against that? And also, how do we protect ourselves? For those of us who aren't like, people in tech, how do we protect ourselves and how do we push back against all of that?
I'll start with the simplest, which is, how do we protect ourselves and push back? And I think we know this. We have always protected ourselves and organized and pushed back by being in community, by really looking around us and building and growing community and strengthening our collective response and, showing up and really thinking through and analyzing what's happening and paying attention to the situation and peeling what the problematics are and thinking through solutions together. I think that community piece, it doesn't matter where we are, whether we're online, whether we're offline, and we know that everything is interconnected. It's not that separation anyway. That piece is that piece for me remains the most significant and important piece. And how do we then create bigger and stronger and more interconnected communities that's outside of this, outside of our own more safer tribes, right? Like, to also then be quite intentional about crossing over this. But you were talking also a little bit about the internet it's meant to be a great equalizer. But how can it be a great equalizer when there is still no equal access to, first of all, at the most basic and simple level, access to technology itself? When at this point in 2025, we operate as though, wow, we're in the future now. Everybody has access to the internet. We will get rid of money and everybody will just use digital currency, la, 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 la. When the reality is, I think we're only like 65 or 69% connected online. That's still, yes, it's 2025. And we only got to 65 or 69% because of COVID, because there was a lot more investment in accelerate, really pushing through connectivity and so forth. But this is a reality. And the more, when you don't have that equality, when you have already from the get-go differences in access to basic connectivity. We're not even talking about the kinds of connectivity you have, like whether you have good quality, what's the quality and cost of your connection, whether it can be very easily shut down by the telco or your government or surveilled for different reasons, which, you're familiar with also. What's been happening in movements all around the world, including in Kenya. And that doesn't even include that. And then the next layer is then actually, where is your your capacity and ability and access to resources to be able to critically engage with these technologies and to create and shape it.
So I have a confession. I sometimes forget that not the whole world is on the internet. It's hard to remember this when it's such a central part of like these big life global moments. And also when some people have more followers online than countries have citizens. And not everyone has the same access. Do I think my memes are funny? Yes. Do I personally feel I should have more followers to spread my hilarity on Instagram? Also, yes. But I do also get that my gender, location, and a whole bunch of other things don't really work in my favor. The access to the internet is a wickedly unequal thing. I said this further up in the podcast. Like, listen back if you think I'm lying. When one looks at the population size versus the number of people on the internet in certain countries, if we went by internet visibility, one would think that the world is made up mainly of white American 20-something-year-olds with half-hearted aspirations to recreate their favorite dance movies.
So you have all these different levels of inequality stacked up. And then a statement like the internet was supposed to be a great equalizer just sounds, it rings very hollow, right? At this point, like actually we know that isn't it, and there's so many different issues surrounding that, and the reason why that we also experience so much misinformation and gendered disinformation specifically also online, and also gendered harassment and technology facilitated gender-based violence online, is also because to some extent, well, on the one hand, technology sits on top of existing disparities, right? So then it sort of, it augments the ability to also express these disparities more.
Jack breaks it down. The con is real. Get you all worked up, and then they can extract data points from you. This is the business model. When you're online fighting for your life in the comments, it's all about money in the bank. When you're angrily commenting on a post about how women shouldn't ride bicycles because they will destabilize the economy, or you're replying to a post on X about how the queers are working with extraterrestrials to overthrow the government, they get you. That is how they get you. That's the scam. I was telling my partner recently about how I am the target market. Rage bait will have me watching a video 4 times in disbelief, checking the comments to see if somebody agrees with me that this is nonsense, right? And boom, I've spent 3 minutes on a 20-second post. A mess.
So for all of these reasons, it's like to put it bluntly, a pretty shitty space. But then at the same time, that's not new to online spaces. It's also been part of many of our other kinds of social and public and private spaces, and community has always been a really important strategy and an important kind of way of being for us to shift the dynamics of it.
Jack is not on the socials, and I don't care for it because Jack is our vibe. I did try and find you on Instagram, and I was like, what? Like, I feel like you're so Instagrammable. Like, this makes no sense to me.
So I'm not sure. So I would like to ask you, what do you feel? Like, what's your sense? I'm really,
interviewed on your own podcast. This is wild. I don't know. I think also for me, I think it's a dual thing. It's partly I've taken, like, the more it became difficult, especially for Holla Africa to maneuver online, the more we started taking like a step back from spaces, just engaging enough. But I think it's partly that, but also I think it's also an age thing. So like a lot of the people who I used to have community with online aren't online as much, right? And I don't know if it's like fatigue, I don't know if it's burnout, but like we're not doing the thing where we all used to jump on a hashtag on what is now called X. Like what is it, an X convo? I don't even know. So and for me, I feel like what I am seeing a lot more in spaces is influencers. So like it's like a funky queer couple, or it's a feminist who goes online and is helping people in Sierra Leone, but she's always on lives by herself. Like there seems to be a very solo nature. And especially as more and more people are like leveraging that space for sort of like what I feel is the social capital of it. Like it does not feel as much with the, oh, cool, we're going to build a community. It feels more like, hey, come on my platform with 35,000 people and two major influencers talk to each other and the rest of us stand on the sidelines and clap our hands.
So high stakes, like you said, no, everyone has become not only we've been invited to participate not as a community member, but as a spectator and a fan, right? Like and at the same time as a critic. So you almost like you only have this very your participation is just either critique or judgment or fan and spectator. So it's so high stakes. So maybe the community conversations are happening in other spaces where it's not so high stakes, when this is not the kind of the model you're running on. So I want to give I want to sort of like give space for hope in also the expansiveness of my ignorance of different conversations that's happening, hopefully. But the influencer phenomena is also a consequence of we were also talking about the economic model of the current technology, digital online sphere, right? Like that is the economic model. It's not just social capital, it's actually monetary capital. Like that's the way in which you're also able to, when you build a brand, when you are the brand, then you also participate in you're able to take different kinds of gigs and do different things. And there is an entire economy of controlling narratives and shaping narratives that's both above ground, that's about consumerism, and also more gray, which is about political power. And that is a real thing that happens all the time in many different spaces where you do have influences of different degrees for hire to shape narrative and public discourse in different ways. So that's also a very real phenomenon in that sense. Yeah.
Besties, AI is a lot for me. Look, am I the naysayer you want to see in the world? No. Am I completely convinced AI will save it? Absolutely not. I'm a millennial. I grew up on movies like iRobot, Terminator, and The Matrix. My vision is colored. But what I have picked up is AI is a little bit more complicated than thinking about it as people using it to cheat on their partners or their exams. The way we speak about AI and think about AI is Jack's Fight Me in the Comments moment. So again, just to tell you what Fight Me in the Comments is about, it is about that idea and that notion that you are willing to break up a dinner party over, that you are willing to go boxing in the street over. Like you are just like, you know what? This is my hot take and you are gonna have to hear it. In this edition of the segment, Jack had some big feelings about how we are engaging with the conversation around AI. So deep were these feelings that they actually apologized to me off air about going on a rant. And I'm like, no, do it. That's exactly what this segment is about. You're just like, nah, you must fight me in the comments because I got some big feelings. And this is also a safe space. And we love and we appreciate it. Just a quick catch up though, before we get into the segment. What is a large language model? Large language models are advanced, deep learning systems trained on vast datasets of text to understand and generate human-like content. Basically, they aren't thinking. It's plagiarism of text on another level. I have to ask the AI question. You know I have to ask the AI question, or else are we even talking about tech, right? So AI, I know it's not a simple yay or nay conversation, but where are you at with sort of AI right now? Yes, because I know I've heard some good things, but then also in terms of like, again, the power dynamics and how this sort of stuff is built and what it focuses on and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've heard some really negative things. So yeah, So where are you at with AI generally?
I guess it depends on what you mean by AI, because I feel like so much of what the conversation around AI or what is being talked about as AI, number one, you kind of add AI and stir to everything, right? And suddenly it's like, no, we cannot talk about technology now without just adding AI. Like my toaster has AI, my shoe has AI, like my pencil has AI. Everything is like AI. I'm like, dude, what are we even talking about? And I think the reason for that is because AI is sincerely a huge marketing term that is supposed to encapsulate everything and nothing at all about developments in technology. So I think it depends what we mean, right? Like when we talk about this, the current trajectory and mania around AI right now is very, very much driven by the power forces that we were just speaking about from the beginning. It is driven by Silicon Valley in the US, by very few companies who basically have been gobbling up all of the capital investment, all of the data, and all of the data and content that we have been creating, not for them, but they've just laid claim to it as though, oh no, it's on the internet, therefore it's public, and therefore we can train all of our systems on it. And it's for the greater good. And it's also kind of increasingly gobbling up more and more energy because AI, large language models, like how things like ChatGPT is being run on, a lot of the so-called AI that we are familiar with, that we are being asked to use in our daily lives, is the kind of model that actually needs to be trained on huge amounts of data sets that then takes up so much energy in terms of electricity as well as clean water and land. And this isn't even talking about, the sorts of resources that's needed to build this machine. And it's doing all of these things and taking, really being if you imagine it as like an anime monster, it's so greedy. There's like 2 or 3 humongous greedy ass monsters that's getting this nebulous shape that's eating up more and more and more, and then selling us this manic dream that AI is going to be the best thing ever. Like it will solve all of our problems. It's so fun. It's so great. Just use it. Please use it. Like we'll put it in everything. Oh, unless you are really intentional about using using non-AI enabled Google, it's automatic. You don't even have a choice. And the reason for that is because they are still continually training their systems. They still don't have a very good use case for you. In what way has it significantly actually helped us, these large language models? In very dubious ways. But this is where we are right now. But when we talk about very specific forms of AI that that are trained on much smaller and specific data sets to solve very particular problems, they've actually produced some really interesting and valuable valuable results for us. I'm sure you've been asked, Tiffany, like, how are you using AI in your thing? No, what about you and AI in content? Like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And I almost want to go like, oh gosh, we have real problems. You want to talk about AI, then okay, let's talk about, the kind of problematic non-consensual use of data. When we talk about AI, let's talk about the people who are being paid very low income to do categorizing and data tagging in our parts of the world, working in really shitty conditions. Let's talk about that. Like that is a conversation I'm interested in having.
Okay, so my confusion is allowed. There are good parts of AI and bad parts. Good parts include helping with research, brain mapping, and collating large amounts of data, like your Excel spreadsheet could never. My dad told me something vague about engineering things, which sounded promising, but then there are also the wild parts of AI, where it's just straight up making stuff up. Like, there have been instances where it's made up case law and gotten lawyers into trouble, right? Like, you don't need this. There's also that controversy where they make up books. Well, they sort of plagiarize books, but then they just also make up book titles. Like, look it up. There's been just a lot of stuff. And then also the unethical use of AI within research papers. AI is like a needy lover. It just wants to make you happy, even if it's selling you dreams and chatting hot trash. And do not even get me started on how it's being used for the creation of revenge porn, or what we should call it, the creation of non-consensual intimate images. But the thing is, AI has slipped into all corners of our digital life. On most platforms, you have to actively switch it off. It even has the older generation in a chokehold. My mother was legitimately jazzed by AI writing a letter for her. And an uncle of mine told me to ask ChatGPT about something he is an expert on. Sir, what do you mean?
Just before you move on, I think, kind of the encounter with your uncle, right? Like the fact that he's going, just ask ChatGPT. And the fact that ChatGPT hasn't really been around for that long, but it's been so pervasive and invasive in our world and in our, experience of technology and expectation, right? You've got to be on ChatGPT if you want to be on it. But why? Every single query takes up so much energy. Why? Not to mention the fact that it's often wrong and hallucinating, but we are kind of calling it. I have a friend also was telling me, oh yeah, what did she say? My friend chat, but it's basically sort of becoming this companion to you, and this person now is like your friend chat. And she meant it as a joke, but I think it's also this real reliance on a function of technology that is untested, that actually is unaudited, that has huge problems in terms of how it is, how it was created, and what underpins its use, and also questionable in terms of its value. That it's that it's become so much a part of our reality, and the consequence of it as well is we are subcontracting our ability to synthesize, analyze, think through different content points, or create, write sentences to this. And language and the ability to synthesize, analyze, write, express ourselves in thought through our own writing in the, from a sentence from A to Z, from the beginning to a full stop, is also such a critical part of critical thinking. And that's also a particular consequence that we don't know what it is yet, because we're now in year 2.5, right, of ChatGPT. So what will happen in 5 years?
What will happen in 5 years? As a psych and sex positive girly, one of the major things I've been seeing is the rise of people dating chatbots, and also people outsourcing therapy to their ChatGPT bots and other platforms. I will not lie, with all the hats I wear, I did not think that mental health and getting people laid on a Friday night would be the parts of my offering that are moving towards becoming obsolete. I don't think they're really going to become obsolete, but I do not care for it. I do not care for it. It's wild out there. Look, I can neither confirm or deny, but I am so sure someone I was having a thing with was using ChatGPT to send me beautiful messages. Like the person 1 minute was like, oh, one-word answers and chilling. And the next, it's giving Shakespeare meets Shonda Rhimes circa season 3 of Grey's. Okay, I was just like, wait, what? How? Look, I am both flattered and confused and have to channel my inner Carrie from Sex and the City and ask, in this digital age, did I fall for the person or the bot?
Right? Yeah. Yay is correct. It's and this person must be trying very hard to impress you, but maybe would have been more impressive in an awkward but, genuinely well felt sentence, probably.
Right? Just maybe sit with it. And if you haven't got that many words, it's fine. We'll figure it out.
It's okay.
But look, anyway, that ended. So I guess that's that.
Oh, shame.
No shame for them. It's fine. Okay, so because
you gotta put in your dating apps, right? Like, please, no ChatGPT. I prefer your awkwardness. Thank you very much.
So to wrap this all up, my people, write your own sexts, sexy texts, right? Write your own ones. Understand that the internet is a lot, and make sure you like and subscribe to the kind part of the internet, because it is wild out here. Like, you genuinely have to ask, what is this hot mess? Because the internet isn't quite the utopia we thought it would be, but all hope is not lost. There are people doing things to make the internet a better place. As usual, we're going to put all sorts of dope links in the show notes, so make sure you check it out. Lastly, no AI was harmed in the making of this podcast. Shout out to the Global Unit for Feminism and Gender Democracy of the Heinrich-Böll Foundation that is hosting this podcast, and my magical team, Ray and Sheldon, for that apocalyptic post-production. This episode was executive produced by yours truly. Till the next episode, this is Tiffany Kagure Mugo telling you to go to the mall in your fancy dress. Use the special teacups your African parents said are for nice occasions, or simply shower after midday, because it's all chaos anyway, and this is not the apocalypse we signed up for.